Hi everyone, my name is Tiffany. Welcome back, or welcome if you've never been here before, and welcome to my first weekly wrap up for the month of February. If you are new here, I feel like I should reiterate the structure of these videos. I like to fill you in on everything I'm reading as I'm fresh off the page. And I also don't like to include any book that I read in a vlog in my wrap-ups, being that I'm already long-winded. I feel like I pretty much cover my thoughts in those. So I'm gonna start this video out with two books. I squeaked out the ARC for The Auction by Maggie Cole just in time. I was so happy. This was sent in such a beautiful freaking box, and I think that the beginning of this book was incredibly cinematic. I mean, the way that she actually gets Blakely to the auction was very clever, and I also sort of like how they meet in the middle. This is very much a rags to riches story on the part of Riggs. Her father was his mentor in business, and now he is a powerhouse of success, which is why it stings that her father has betrayed and stolen from him. And in the inverse, Blakely has grown up with a silver spoon, and she has chosen to shove that away to pursue her passions in music. And I wasn't expecting to meet her where she was in terms of really living her version of a starving artist as a waitress at a strip club and living gig by gig just to get her songs out there. And so the way that she is dropped quite literally into the hands of the man that she was pining for as a teenager and into his plans for her father was very clever. Okay, I loved it. And I will say I also enjoy that this is an age gap, sexy deal, kinky type of situation, and how Blakely is new to BDSM. She doesn't know what submission is, and she enters into this arrangement with him really under duress and as a means of survival. And when he finds that out, it has one of my favorite things in a BDSM romance where we have a meditation on tutelage. He walks her through that contract and make sure that she understands what she's getting into, because this starts out full throttle when it comes to the kink. Okay, we're talking punishment, correction. It really goes there. And so we do have some backtrack. We do have some fight on the part of Blakely. She's just not willing to kneel because she's been pining for this man for years, and I liked that. I really enjoy that she fought him every single step of the way, because she requires more from him than this sort of stern dominance of correction, and that really challenges him, and he slowly starts to open up. He has no idea what he's getting into. Neither of them do, and this does end on a cliffhanger, so I'm interested in seeing if the tables turn. I rated this 4 stars, and I'm excited because the second in the duet, because it does end on a cliffhanger, comes out on March 1st, and that is going to be the vow. So I am here for it, ready, and I need to get into this because this month is going to be busy. Oh, after that, I read The Duke Gets Even by Joanna Shupe. This is a highly anticipated release for me. I have been waiting for Nellie's book because Nellie has been a scene stealer throughout the series. In my opinion, she is very independent, progressive, she's far-reaching, and I just wanted to know more. And also about Lockwood, okay? Lockwood is a hero that has been tasked really with finding a suitable match in order to save his estate. He needs a scandal-free wife. And this book starts out with him going on a night swim and Nellie swimming up like a siren and completely captivating him. And up until this point throughout the series, he's really courted and really been engaged with all of her friends. And I liked how this book took us back to events from book 1. So on this like night of their meet cute where they share a kiss and have plans to meet again, they quickly learn how they're truly aligned at Maddie's house party, and Lockwood is actually engaged to her best friend. We know how that works out, but what I loved about this book is that it's at a point where She's the last to get her HEA. All of her friends have found the one, and it's really changed the dynamic within their friendship. She's happy for them, truly elated. But I think what it has done is it sparked this need for her to find purpose and to question what she really wants out of life. And I loved that about Nellie. I loved her relationship with her father. I loved her relationship with her family on her mother's side. There is a trigger warning for loss and grief in this book. So it's not at all surprising that she's reluctant to fall and possibly lose. And up until this point, Lockwood has come off as buttoned up, prickly, a man of propriety, and that is just upended in the most delicious way. He is so caring. He sees her. He's protective. He's very forward about what he's looking for, what he needs, and what he wants from her. And so he's sort of shaking up everything that she thought that she ever wanted with his swimmer's body and chivalry and care, because she desperately needs this to simply be a tryst between them. I loved all of the scenes that were within water in this book. It makes me want to step back. Okay, I want to step back in water. They're like my favorite. I love to see the water dripping off of skin. But Lockwood as a hero completely surprised me. I loved his backstory. I loved that he is a man of duty and honor, and it was just so delicious. There is something in this book that happens in the third act on the part of Nellie that is well-intentioned, that rubbed me the wrong way. It places another character in great danger. It had this air of, I have to be the one to right this social injustice. However, it does open up very timely conversation about women's reproductive rights. And so I think that I did enjoy that tie-in, but I have to be honest about her headstrong nature and stepping in that way did rub me the wrong way. And not to put you in a tailspin, because I am a very analytical person, but to push back on myself, this sort of air that she has to be the one to right this social injustice could possibly be so, being that she's a woman of great privilege, and because of her father's connections, she's able to do that. And I recognize that throughout history, we have needed people to make those sacrifices in order to administer systemic change. So I understand that. I'm just saying I didn't enjoy reading that part, and I refrained from nitpicking because there's also just a very raw, real human moment in this book where she just breaks out of grief, out of anger as to how things are in life, out of what she has to risk, out of fear of falling headfirst and not being caught. And I just loved that about this book, so I rated it 5 stars. I absolutely feel like it delivered on what I was looking for. Nellie was who I expected her to be, and so much more. And Lockwood completely surprised me. So I absolutely loved this. This is also going to be the book club pick for the Blushing Blue Stocking Society, run by Rachel from Rachel Reads and Sings and Lisa from Remarkably Lisa. I believe the live show is on the 11th on Lisa's channel. I'm not sure about the time, but I will be there because I'm ready to discuss. I love book club for that. I love the chat in the comments and just breaking down everything, and there's a lot to unpack here, so I loved it. I will be back when I've read more and have more thoughts. See you in the next clip. Okay, so I need to speak backwards in terms of reading order because I am fresh off the page of Lore by Lily Mayne, and I haven't even DM'd Jen. I'm about to go to work. I need to ask what her thoughts are because she started this before me, but I just want to get this out because I spent like, oh my gosh, I don't know, like 9 hours reading this book. I'm gonna rate Lore by Lily Mayne 4 stars. I'm gonna tell you why I loved it and why I will understand if others don't, okay? Because this is a very long book. It is. It could have used a little bit of editing, but there's something about that that I loved because I'm completely invested in this monstrous world. This is the first book in the series where our hero Jugs is the monster. And we are getting answers to questions that we've had in terms of the monster apocalypse. And we're getting a monster world setting. Lore is the world leader of this world, and this is heavily weighed upon him. He is soulless in his position. He's not at all invested in it. He has this great sense of duty and really is envious of his brother that he has such a loving relationship with, because he gets to, you know, he's the second born. He is the head of the military, but he gets to freely entertain dalliances with guards and live his life. But what I liked about this, and I think I'm kind of getting more insight into, is that it's a portal romance. Okay, Jugs is a campus counselor in the 80s, and he falls through a portal into Lore's world, and they at first hold him captive, and it's their romance. And he's going back and forth. That's all I'm gonna say. But what I did not enjoy about the romance aspect in this book was that there is a situation of separation, and the problem solving for that did last a little too long, okay, in my opinion. However, just Jugs being this sort of himbo and Lore being this like celestial femme and also sweet and caring, very insecure, very new to it all, has never done anything for himself, hasn't explored anything sexually, coming together with Jugs. It's very sweet. I also happen to like that this was character driven. I do think that the politics of Lore's world and him coming into his position, self, and power takes precedent over the romance in this book. And that's why it's not 5 stars for me. And as well as the pacing and the length, I would understand if that doesn't work for everyone. For me, I was just lapping everything up. Lapping up all of the details of this world. It's very sprawling. It's very slice of life. And I felt like it is a book that sort of like completes an aspect of the overall like world and economy of this universe really well. So, I mean, all the little details of like the origin place of a lot of characters that I love were expounded on to great detail, but I enjoy all of those things. So that's why like I'm coming off of the page loving it, where I think the romance suffered because of it. And I have to just be honest about that. And it's not my favorite within this series, but I just thought it was a very unique take, being that, you know, our human is our monster. I wish I could have had more time with them together. And even in that, we got some repeat and beats, but I was living in those. Like, I didn't care. I loved their little, like, just sweet and timid exploration of each other. And it was just like insatiable and like, oh, I loved them. I loved them together. I wanted more of them together in the next phase of development when it came to their romance. But I had a good time with this book, even though it is very long. I'm still gonna rate it 4 stars because I just feel like it's a good add to the overall monster universe. But I do recognize that there are some points that might bother people. So I just want to get that out, okay? And then let's backtrack to The Sculptor by Kristy Marie, I believe it is, because I got this rec from Cheyenne, that tall book girl. She was talking about it, and I'm very happy that I picked this up because, I'm sorry, I'm gonna go with hero and heroine. Again, I'm coming off the heels of Lore, and that was like a commitment, and I don't remember their names. But I do like the heroine in this book. She is engaged to a very corrupt, soulless, sexist senator who wants his new fiance to get a fresh set of tits. Okay, that's really gonna round her out. He's also like emotionally and verbally abusive. And so when he schedules for her to go see a plastic surgeon, she's not at all expecting for the surgeon to be the quite literal love of her life that she lost for reasons that we aren't privy to. And when he sees her, he is determined to have her back. And what I liked about him is that at first he believes that she lost herself, and very quickly he remembers who he fell in love with and knows that there's probably some rhyme or reason to it, and he wants to know why. And there's this sort of like plot of espionage. She's not just in this blindly. She's after something that she lost. And it has to do with the hero and their journey and their past that is expounded on within these flashbacks that actually reinforce the present storyline. I don't always think that they do. In here, I think that they're done well. It's slowly revealed over time, and she knows that she has to keep her aim from him because he's very possessive, okay? He's very protective. He's gone for her. I mean, completely unraveled, willing to risk it all. This is not something that his family is happy about, her re-entering his life because of something that happened in the past. And he's willing to sacrifice it all. And I love that about him, the way that he cared for her, the way that he saw her, and that she's smart and like as a whip. He's just obsessed. And so he does take over, which is exactly what she needs. And this goes on to a sort of like mystery plot of them trying to uncover something together that I wasn't really expecting. And an aspect that I loved about this book was that in the third act, when we get just reveals that could lead to a breakup, that could lead to just foolishness and repetitiveness within romance, she chooses to assume the best of him. And I loved that. I love that about this. And I'm ultimately rating it 4 stars. There were a couple things that I had issue with, but just like their connection and his possessiveness and his care was everything. And the reveals on what happened to them. Oh, I enjoyed this. So thank you, Cheyenne. And I believe that Crystal was reading this, but thank you, Cheyenne. Cheyenne also introduced me to Sarah Kate with Gravity. So I'm thankful, girl. Okay, I am thankful. And I have to go to work, so I will be back when I've read some more. I am back. I'm just getting to work, so I apologize if it is loud in the background, but I need to fill you in before this gets out of hand. Let's start with Fina by Nino Cipri. I believe that's how it's pronounced. This is a novella. It's not a romance. It is a portal sci-fi take on what I'm gonna call our indentured servitude to capitalism. I thought it was really smart. It's set in a store that's very much like an IKEA. Think of like large showrooms. Our main character has been called into work. It is her day off, but her coworker is sick. And she's desperately trying to avoid her recent ex that's constantly being misgendered in the workplace. And she's tasked with finding a customer's lost grandmother. In this world, there are wormholes. And her job is arming her with a very outdated video, archaic tech, and letting her know that she can decline, but she will be fired. She will not be getting paid overtime or getting any health insurance, even if something happens. And so she goes on this sort of quest. And it's just like the hilarity of the fact that she's being made to do this. And of course she's going with her ex is just like excruciating, especially since I'm going to work. But I think it speaks to the larger conversation that's actually very timely, being that since the pandemic, like, there has been a huge exodus from corporate. There have been a lot of people who have left their jobs. They're recasting their professional careers. And on the corporate end, I think businesses have discovered that work can get done at home, and there have been cuts made. But this journey that she goes on with her ex that sort of expounds on what went wrong between them, where they need to grow as people into these like different dimensions. I mean, we're like meeting pirates. We're going on a crazy wild ride, and how, you know, interdimensional travel works. Like, I'm realizing I really enjoyed that in books. It's just wild. I had a really good time with it. I think that it's smart. And I think it's got something to say. So I rated it 4 stars. It's not a romance, but the ending was kind of a nice nod to it after they discover how they weren't really honest with each other in that relationship. And how, I mean, this is really high stakes, life or death. When they're traveling through these wormholes, it was wild and I really enjoyed it. So I'm rating it 4 stars. I moved on to Guidance by Danielle Allen. Oh, this was delicious. I mean, right out the gate, it was a 4-star read. It's following a guidance counselor, and it's also a single dad romance, being that she is calling in her student's father. And she's just bringing up talking points for them to go over in terms of their shared grief. I love the communication in this, how they hit it off, the sexual tension. There is foam steam. And oh, I just love like the commentary on self-love and self-care and the fact that he's taking care of her, a woman that's looking after everyone else. This is like short, sweet, steamy, and to the point, but I absolutely loved it. And then I read the 7th in the Wayward Children series. I'm obsessed with this series, okay? It's just so good. This is following Cora, and Cora is a character that has traveled to the trenches. Her door was an underwater world filled with mermaids, and I love the telegraphing in this series because it opened for her at the moment where she was going to take her life. And this is also coming after a group adventure book where she makes a great sacrifice and kind of theoretically opens a new door that scares her. And so she's just kind of ready to forget. And she's choosing to leave Eleanor's safe haven to go to Whitethorn. And I would say that the difference in the teaching philosophy would also be kind of aligned with where Eleanor's is very social model. Okay, which I'm a fan of. And Whitethorn is more behavioral modification. They're both effective, but they have a very different tone. And at Whitethorn, it is sort of their way of stripping what happened to these children away in order to take on the cold reality of the world they're in now, which is ours. And I just loved the conversation centered around fat phobia. Okay, this is a heroine that I could relate to, so I loved that. Everyone gets a sort of prologue, or you kind of see like why their door opened. So I do love Cora's character. And also the power in a name. This has some exploration on honoring where we've been and how that informs where our feet are right now. I just think it was beautiful. There's a bit of like a group edge, you know, we've got to rescue Cora from the decisions that she's making. And I love this series. It was 5 stars. I'm finally ready for the 8th book. Now I did skip book 6 because I want to save it for when I just need to be back in this world, but I'm here for it. It was 5 stars. It's one of my favorite in the series. Book 2 is another favorite of mine. And wrapping up, I've also read Daughter of No Worlds by Cassandra Broadbent. I hope I'm saying that right. Is it Cassandra? I know you can see the cover. But I have to know and get it correctly. Carissa, excuse me. Oh, I loved Tisana's resilience in this book and the snippet that we get of her in the beginning, because she is enslaved. She is witty and she has magic ability, yet I just think that her prowess is like innate. It's in raw form at that point. And at the beginning of this book, she aims to buy back her freedom, which leads to her having to, I'm going to say, murder her not only captor, but a very high profile person within this world. And so, of course, she flees the scene, leaving her best friend there and just loved ones. And she goes to enlist with the Order, which is like this organization that wields magic. And in order to gain entry into their ranks so she can go back and help and save her loved ones, she has to be trained by Max, who is a grump. He's a recluse, and he really read like he is just weary of the politics of this world and is resentful of the Order. He's also very notorious for his time spent in the war, his contributions, I'll say, in a way. And this was a slow go of it for me, because it really is her being the entry point into this world and her learning not only how to wield magic, but of all that she was kind of cast out of as a slave. And this just turned into the slow chiseling away of Max's sort of demeanor towards her and his outlook. It becomes almost friends to lovers, if you will, found family. They become each other's home, and she does wield this dang magic. I love how hardworking she was and how she's just bulldozes her way through every single obstacle. I loved how she went about learning, her way of like tackling everything head on. I could relate to her dedication and that kind of like try hard will within her, or at least I aimed to be when I was in school. But I loved her as a heroine. I loved how they slowly develop their relationship, how it is an age gap as well. I love to see it. And also the reveal in this book, because I needed the push to continue. I really did. When Jen was like, oh, well, why don't you just keep reading? I continued, and I'm so happy that I did, because the reveal was eerie and a little creepy. And it also complicated the dynamic between their romance and their mission that becomes coupled in the end, and the reveal on what Max can do. Oh my God. So I am on board for the series. I'm so happy. It's the first that I picked up for Pharaoh Feb, and oh my God, that reveal. You have to push, or at least I did. I had to really push for it, because everything is sort of being plopped into place as she's learning her magic, as she's getting to know him, as she's on this mission to go back and free everyone. And that persists, but in a very different way. And I just loved their romance. It is complicated with this reveal. Oh my God, I loved it so much. So I ended up rating it 4 stars because of the slow go, and I'm very intrigued for more. I'm not sure when I'm gonna pick up the second book. I will see you when I have read more and I have more thoughts on my next reads. See you soon. I'm back to wrap up this video with 2 more reads. Okay, let's start with Midnight Duet by Jen Comfort. I found this because Crystal posted it on her Instagram, and it is on KU for read and listen. This is a hilarious rom-com, gender-bent Phantom of the Opera retelling, and I just loved the dedication, being that it was to all former drama kids, performing artists, and theater fanatics. I was a drama kid and in the performing arts, musical theater specifically, for a really long time before my transition to film. So I just loved the opening of this book, being that the heroine is on Broadway and she's dealing with all of the drama of her castmates and rehearsal. And basically, she gets hit with a falling light after being cursed by a castmate that accuses her of cheating with her boyfriend. And like, we catch up with her when she is visibly scarred and injured from the accident. She's no longer on Broadway. She's inherited this rundown theater that she's struggling to keep open, and it's about to get foreclosed on, until she gets this wild request that seems to come out of nowhere from this like ragtag metal band of misfits from Berlin. They were absolutely hilarious. Like, every one of these freaking band members had their own little like quirk, and they have this like dysfunctional familial like dynamic between them. They have a dream of becoming the next big rock stars coming out of Berlin, and so they want to record in the States, and they're willing to pay top dollar in order to do so. Oh God, I just found the band to be absolutely hilarious. This turns into just like found family for the heroine. When they finally arrive, she doesn't realize that she will have to accommodate them. And so this is really like a back and forth of Christopher, I believe that was his name, who is the leader of the band, lead guitarist, harboring secrets, you know, keeping the fact that his relationship of 11 years and her affiliation as the band's keyboardist has ended, just to keep the morale of the band afloat, because corralling all of them is a Herculean effort. I mean, they're ridiculous. And so he's harboring that secret. She's harboring the fact that her place isn't even up to code, and feeling guilty as we continue to go throughout the course of the book for taking their money, but being in this position to do so, all while this sexual tension between them is just brewing. I love how the band as well as Christopher sees past her scars and like really want to get to know her as a person, and how again she finds family in the band, and how she's able to kind of push past a lot of guilt that she harbors for even lusting after him, since she believes that he does have a girlfriend. And I thought that this was hilarious. There's a lot of like voyeurism, like I said, sensual tension, and this the notes of found family. The brand of comedy hit for me, so you'd have to try this out to see if it lands for you. But I just found this to be absolutely like, I just laughed out loud the whole time. I ended up rating it 4 stars. And then I picked up Plié by A.H Cunningham. I absolutely loved this. It was 5 stars. I'm not going to bury the lead here. This was a delicious BDSM single dad. And I will agree with Caitlin from the Love Librarian. This is why I picked it up. In her post, she called it a dislike to love. And I definitely think this is fitting between a parent and a teacher. Knox is a single father, and Aisha is his daughter's ballet instructor. And Knox is the type of parent that always has something to say about how she's running her class, how she could do it better. He is constantly needling her. And so needless to say, their relationship is contentious, and their banter is of the argumentative foreplay variety, which I love. And on the flip side, this also ushers in a sort of teach me element, being that Aisha really ended her career as a dancer and opened this ballet studio in order to be a caretaker to her grandparents, which I loved. The note of family in this book and the meditations on that and what we promote in terms of treatment is just stand out in this book. But she also has a history of being a submissive, and she has an opportunity to be a sub for hire. And so she takes this on in order to make a little extra income, and she gets paired with a new dom that's still learning, and of course it's Knox. Except they don't know it because they are masked during their first session and scene, and immediately she enjoys the fact that he isn't lording his power over her, but really trying to position the scene for the sub's greatest pleasure. And of course, they hit it off. And so we see their relationship sort of unfold in the classroom setting, as well as behind the scenes at the BDSM club when it comes to tutelage. And what I loved about this book is that Knox is so hyper focused on Aisha in the beginning, and it comes off as judgment, and it's really just his obsession and him being mesmerized by how she approaches life. This is also sort of a Grumpy Sunshine mashup, and I just loved both of their backstories, how they end up shuffling their lives together, and the fact that it is a fight to do so. I just loved this book so much. There's so many different elements in it in terms of, like I said, family, the dynamic between them, and how they can even make it work. I love when a romance ushers in all of those practical reasons for why they can't be together, and they choose to lean in and make it happen anyway. There's a lot of trauma that's uncovered in this book that they both hold space for and share, and communication is at the forefront as well. So I absolutely loved it. I rated it 5 stars. It was everything, okay? It is a new favorite. I cannot wait to dive into more from this author, and I feel like I'm ending this video off on a high note. I want to thank you for joining me. Please consider subscribing and sticking around, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.